Welcome back again, folks, to Freedom Law School's 2009 Health and Freedom Conference, going on in this March 14, 2009. If you haven't been to our website before, go to livefreenow.org. That's livefreenow.org. And we have a lot of great videos and speeches in areas of health and freedom and justice and peace available at our website, which is livefreenow.tv. That's a different one. Livefreenow.tv is for videos, and for the educational information and writing, you go to livefreenow.org. It's my pleasure to bring you your next speaker because I actually, every day, you could say, I think about him because I have to think of what he provides me every day. In fact, this morning, I started out drinking what he provides. He's a pioneer in the field of raw milk. You know, there's a lot of controversy about raw milk. Is it good or not? Is pasteurized better or not? Well, I can tell you that I myself, I consume it every day. I started this morning with it. It's an important regular part of my everyday eating. And our next speaker really has become an expert on this subject. And I want him to tell you why, so you know the difference between raw, pasteurized milk, why, and your choices. Please help me bring the president of Organic Pastures, Mr. Mark McAfee.
You get a little bit of a light too, Dan? Okay, I'll do that. No problem. I'll do it quick.
It's indeed my pleasure to be here today and to address this interesting issue, which is not on our radar screens very often because as people age, they generally stop drinking milk in this country. It's not something on our radar screen. Nutrition is not something generally talked about when we talk about healthcare in our country. So we're going to talk about not so much about raw milk, but why the elements in raw milk are critical. And that's what the real subject matter is why the elements in raw milk are so critical. It's your choice if you want to drink raw milk or not. So it's supposed to be a free country, and hopefully we can keep ourselves free enough to be able to have choices. So if we choose to drink raw milk, we can, or not. Depends on what you want to do. So as the founder of Organic Pastures Dairy, and my wife Blaine is here. Blaine, you want to stand up and say hi? Yeah. We want to address kind of a broad range of issues that we want to keep you on the edge of your seat a little bit and give you some excitement to talk about this subject, because talking about food may or may not be really exciting to any of you, but I think we're going to talk about some broader issues which may be very exciting to you. At Organic Pastures Dairy, we pioneered producing a whole food. If you go to a farmer's market, you'll find whole foods all over the place. You'll find your vegetables, you find all kinds of stuff, unprocessed, whole, natural, right from the farm. But you won't find raw milk. It's kind of the anomaly in the food group that has to be processed, and has to be standardized and homogenized. It can't come directly from the farm. It has to go through some process before it gets to you. And we're going to talk about why that will happen and what's caused the root of the evil here to occur, and some truths and some lies that, as you know, if you tell a lie enough, it becomes readily acceptable as the truth. And what we're going to do is try to shed some light on that so you can make your own decision about what you really believe the truth is. And I think there's some really, really good science out there to show us exactly what the truth is. So with that, Organic Pastures Dairy was founded in 1999, and my original concept was not to actually have an organic dairy to produce raw milk. It was to take care of the cows and to try to be honest with Mother Nature and do everything as naturally as possible. But within just a few weeks of starting Organic Pastures Dairy, we had movie stars showing up literally at our footsteps at the creamery, or at the dairy, because they didn't have a creamery then, and saying, hey, we want our milk raw. Janet Sheen, Martin Sheen's wife. and Daryl Hannah showed up. They had ice chests, and they said, fill it up. We don't care how much it costs. We want all the raw milk we can get from those kind of grass-fed organic cows. And to me, that was, wow, that was kind of a revelation because I didn't appreciate the difference between pasteurized and raw at the time. Even though I'd grown up on a dairy and drank raw milk when I was a kid until I was 13, 14 years old, and I'd spent a great deal of my life as a certified paramedic and watching people die in the back of my ambulance and on a helicopter on 16,000 paramedic calls over a 15-year period, I never put two and two together about nutrition and wellness being correlated at its very root. So organic pastures dairy started out literally within just a few weeks of its opening to produce milk that was sent off to be pasteurized with Organic Valley. Now, movie stars were wanting it, and Mark McAfee became a student to try to learn why people wanted their milk raw. So I started from scratch and spent untold number of hours on the internet and reading books and became, well, some people call me an expert, but I'm just a perpetual student is what I am. And I've spoken all over the world now in 4 countries and about 60 different times in the last few years on this subject. And so I consider it quite an honor to be among those of you who embrace freedom and liberty, because you can't really have freedom or liberty if you're locked up in a hospital bed dying from MRSA. You can't really have health or freedom if you're dependent on an insulin shot. You can't really have health or freedom if you're sucking on your Alupent inhaler. You can't really have health or freedom if you got an oxygen cannula stuck in your nose, paying somebody else for the oxygen that keeps you alive. Truly, foundation of freedom and liberty is your health. In fact, we've seen our sales go up and up and up in the last 2 or 3 months. As people lose their wealth, they reconsider the value of their health. And it's fascinating to see people embracing health and exercise and hydration, whole food nutrition diets as they lose their wealth because they realize the only thing they've really got is their own soul and body. And the determination of what they put in their mouth is something they're willing to fight and die for. So it's a very interesting story we have, and I only have about an hour to tell it. So we're going to try to slow it down. I have a nasty habit of speaking too quickly. So please, I beg you, ask me to slow down if I talk too fast. I'll try to keep things as moving along as fast as possible to touch on as many of these issues as I can. You can find our dairy products in about 420 stores in California, and about 42,000 people a week drink our milk, and they drink them for a broad variety of reasons. But this is an ad my daughter put together the other day. It's being run in a national magazine, gourmet magazine, because, you know, literally, there are people all over this country who cannot access a whole food made from dairy products. You can't get to it. I mean, it's 22 states it's illegal, and in the 25 states you got to go to the farm and buy it. You can't advertise it. And there's only a handful of states, 4 or 5 states, you can actually go buy it in a store. Washington, Connecticut, California, and Arizona, very limited. There's a couple other states, but it's very, very hard to get raw dairy products. Hippocrates said 2,400 years ago, the father of modern medicine, he said, let food be your medicine, medicine be your food. He believed in nutrition being the prevention of disease. And that is so true then, and it's so true now. But it's so ignored today. I saw Sanjay Gupta interviewing Clinton the other day. Anybody see that interview between Sanjay Gupta and President Clinton? It was interesting where President Clinton's really bright in terms of understanding healthcare worldwide. He was comparing our country's healthcare program with the Britons and the Australians and other first world nations, the Swiss, and so on and so forth. And he said a very key point. He said, you can't have universal healthcare if you don't have universal prevention. And because you can't afford the ever-escalating problem with more and more sick people. You do the same thing over and over and over, getting worse and worse and worse. What's that called? That's called insanity, right? So without universal nutrition, you can't have sustainable universal health care or sick care. Sick care should actually take care of about 5% of the problems. Prevention should take care of 90%, 95% of the problem, and we should be healthy as we are wealthy in our country. But we aren't. It's ignored. It's not something that we discuss or talk about because the entire idea of nutrition is hijacked by the food companies. It's a fighting over the food pyramid, and it's not something that they're interested in discussing. Coca-Cola certainly has no reason to want to think that their product is not right there at the top, right? So we have a real issue with the fact that universal health care is not being discussed in the same breath with universal nutrition, because the foundation of wellness is in whole food. Bottom line, whole food. Not veganism, not this diet, not that diet. You look back 35,000 years, you study all the cultures that succeeded in the world, and guess what? They all had whole food nutrition from natural sources. So that's the bottom line. That's the secret. That's a secret. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be a secret. This is a picture of where our cows live and breathe every day. And at Organic Pastures Dairy, which is located about 20 miles southwest of Fresno, that's a very biodiverse, sun-drenched, natural environment. If you let a cow out of a pen and you let her go, I doubt you're going to find her go stand in the middle of concrete someplace or lay on top of a big pile of manure. She's going to try to find a green pasture of grass, and when that's all consumed, she's going to go try to find another green pasture of grass, and she's going to graze until she finds some water, and then she's going to go lay down some shade, and then she's going to go find some more grass. They like to eat green grass. They don't like to eat lay down on big piles of manure, and they don't like fermented foods. This is the natural set of conditions that cows have, and this is what we provide our cows at Organic Pastures Dairy. And as a result, guess what? We discovered something that's been kind of hidden for a while. And that is the truth of the 1850s to 1890s, when it was a buried secret, a buried lie, that there was actually 2 raw milks out there, guys. 2 raw milks. One intended for pasteurization and one intended for people. 2 different lies, 2 different laws, actually a lie too, but 2 different laws, 2 different standards, 2 different regulations, 2 different testing paradigms. In 1893, it was kind of enough was enough, because the downtown brewery dairies in Boston and New York and Philadelphia, which was actually hiring the people who were coming through Ellis Island, which were the poor and the downtrodden of the world, not the healthy and the wealthy, to milk their cows by hand. There was no hot water per se. There was no clean conditions for the cows. Certainly the cows weren't out in green grass pastures. They were inside of these confinement areas. They were eating brewers' distillers' grains, which is much like some of the foods being fed to cows today in big confinement dairies. But it was not a natural set of conditions. You had typhoid fever. You had all kinds of problems with tuberculosis, brucellosis. And the people actually milking the cows had a productive sputum with problems with their lungs, tuberculosis. So the conditions were horrendous. And when horses died in the street, they had a big problem just removing the horses from the inside of these downtown, these metropolises that didn't have a lot of infrastructure, didn't have water, didn't have flushing toilets. In fact, you had to watch out walking down the street, because 3rd or 4th story up, somebody's throwing their piss and crap out the window. And you get hit in the head with it. So it was a real big problem with humidity and the lack of cleanliness and sanitation in these downtown areas in the late 1800s. And there came the milk problem. The raw milk that was produced by these swill dairies was killing 25 to 30% of the kids that drank it every year. It was horrendous health problem. But there was another milk. There was a milk being produced just like this in the Amish out in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania. It was being taken in the Mayo Clinic and healing people because of its probiotic whole food nature. So there was 2 milks. And for a while, they kind of coexisted with the American Association of Medical Milk Commissions. Are we okay here? Oh, it's fell off. Excuse me. The American Association of Medical Milk Commissions, which was an association of doctors that got together and said, no, we want raw milk. We want it to come from clean cows in clean, natural conditions. And until about 1996, there was actually dairies in the United States, lots of dairies, and the last one was Altadena Dairy in 1995, 1996, that produced this kind of milk. But in the Industrial Revolution in the 1930s and 1940s, our young farmer boys were going off to fight wars and doing other things, and we needed a long shelf life, and we certainly weren't worried about any nutrition. This is the land of DDT. We were worried about exporting and feeding the world. We were working about, starving in World War II, spending our money on other things other than quality food. The demise of raw milk really came on hard. And so you saw industrialization and just make all the milk you can, dirty, 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 because we're going to pasteurize the heck out of it. Don't worry about it. It'll be all dead, and it'll be good to go. And with that, a lot of marketing, a lot of pasteurizers were sold, and you saw the demise of the raw milk movement from the certified raw milk movement that happened in 1893 with Dr. Coit. And you saw the uprising of commercial milk interests. Well, that's kind of the root of where this all began. And this truth has been buried, and that is when you put a cow in a natural set of conditions, much along the lines of what Claude Bernard described, the milieu, the environment in which you live, the ecosystem, the immune system actually determines whether you get sick or not. It's not the bug or the germ. When you change the environment in which the cow is in, the cow actually stops producing pathogens in her manure. And now I'm not going to say all pathogens, because there's some pathogens right now like Campylobacter, which you'll find in our cow's manure, but you won't find E. coli 0157H7. We've tested our cow's manure. We test them every summer. And guess what? We have yet to find E. coli 0157H7 in our producing cow's manure. And that's very important to know because those sets of conditions are different than a factory farm where you find it 2% at 3% of the time. So you've changed the conditions and you've kept them all natural, and those conditions are very biodiverse, very sun-drenched, very, very natural. You stop seeing these bad bugs that everybody uses as fear factor to kind of modulate and move the market around and keep you fearful of something that's completely natural. Excuse me. It wasn't natural. Okay. So, with that as kind of a background in history, it kind of sets the format of what's going forward here. We are literally drenched in bacteria in our bodies. 750 trillion. I mean, we can argue maybe it's 500 trillion because we really don't know. It's a best guess by scientists. 750 trillion bacteria symbiotically inhabit the body. They share DNA with our cells all the time. In fact, some of our cells wait around for the information from the bacteria that are next to them to tell them what to do. They share bacteria, the DNA back and forth. 50 trillion cells make up the human DNA. In fact, we know that from the Human Genome Project that they only could find about 13%, 15% maybe, of the human genome in terms of what makes us DNA, or what the DNA that makes us human. That's pretty scary because that means what is the other 87% or 85% or 80% of what makes us human? Well, genetically speaking, they're now having the Human Bacterial Genome Project to look for the bacteria in our bodies to figure out what drives us in the genetic code. And so very interesting that our genetics are very much what symbiotically we are, as far as being bacteriosapiens, what we are. So if you think about that, and 80% of the human immune system is made up of the good bacteria in your gut, we are bacteriosapiens, guys. I'd be cautious about what you do with your bacteria in your body. As Americans, you're supposed to be scared out of your brains that you've got bacteria anywhere near you, right? You sterilize your food, you radiate this, radiate that, you use hand sanitizers, you take antibiotics like candy like antibiotics. And what do you create? Superbugs. Think about this one. 247 people died today. They died yesterday. They will die tomorrow. Not even in the news. MRSA infections. Methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. These are superbugs being created by antibiotic abuse in our country. That's over 100,000 people a year dying. 2 million people a year get sick from MRSA. That's just the tip of the iceberg on the complete collapse and failure of the germ theory concept. So it's pretty spooky to think about the fact that we would appear to be not healthy bacteriosapiens, but rather scared people who have the wrong concept of what life actually is. And, it really is spooky because raw milk is a biologically diverse food. And it has a mirror image of all the conditions that cow was in at microscopic levels. So all the bacteria in the pasture, all the bacteria in the sisters of all the cows, the environment in which has very, very low levels of those bacteria, which give you the immunity to deal with that kind of environment. So local means something. The word local actually means something. Because local raw milk, it's like local raw honey. It gives you immunity for the environment in which you intend to live in. It's pretty important stuff. In fact, you can kind of harken it back to the land of milk and honey if you want. Kind of a biblical foundation there. Well, why is raw milk a lightning rod? It really is, and it should be because of this. It should be because of children. This little raw milk baby here is totally happy and doing great. But I'll tell you, it's not. It's not this. It's about money. Dr. Weston Price, and we've heard a lot about him, Ohio dentist who went around the world in the 30s, and he looked at primitive cultures that didn't have the internet, they didn't know each other, all over the world. And he asked them questions, and one of the questions he asked them was, why do you eat the food you eat? And they said, every one of them said, reported in some version of this, because we want to have healthy children. Now, not all of these people drank raw milk. The Eskimos never did. But all of them had the elements in raw milk. Now, in America, it's kind of hard to find fermented fish. It's not easy to do. It's not culturally really accepted. Roadkill's not something we eat, although I saw a little bit last night. We had some really good raw beef. But it's a super neat little package to have grass-fed, organic, no pesticides, no hormones, no GMO, no nothing, no soy, nothing in there that's artificial. Milk that's got the right fats, It's got the right enzymes, lots of different kinds of digestive enzymes, and lots of really wonderful bacteria, biodiverse bacteria. Those all go back into our gut to reinforce our immune systems and give us that wonderful symbiosis that we need to actually have a functioning body that works right, to fight off bacteria, infections or whatever. So you don't have to drink raw milk. It's just harder to go find the elements found in raw milk in a neat little delicious package in this grocery store or in your backyard or wherever you're going to find it, and be able to get that same thing that all these tribes around the world, the Dr. Weston Price found, consumed. So that's the reason why people freaked out about raw milk, is because, my God, what a neat little package to be able to get all this good stuff to feed myself, give myself the elements, along with the other farmers market foods. It's not all by itself. It's wonderful food amongst the other foods you find at the farmer's market. So that said, it should be about healthy kids. It should be about how well our next generation will operate, how fertile we are, how healthy we are, that we don't have problems with disease in our life. Stanford did a research study and found that life expectancy is someplace 77 years in the United States, 77. It actually peaked and went backwards a little bit this last few years. But the quality of life expectancy is how much? 46. I'm over the top last year, 47. So it's pretty spooky to consider we got about 31 years, 30 years or so, lame duck somehow, you know. We don't want to be a part of that crowd. We want to be healthy to the end. And you look at some great examples. Queen of England, drank raw milk. All the people, you know, the royalty in England. She lived to be over 100 years old, didn't have a disease in her body when she died. I mean, I don't know if she did or not, but I mean, they say that she didn't have much wrong with it. 100 years old, drinking raw milk. The Russian cosmonauts, the doctors will not let them drink pasteurized milk. The guys down in Houston have a hard time getting the cosmonauts in Houston because they want to have raw kefir, raw milk. I was talking to Ed Alpers, he's part of that whole extension process with the government of Russia in Houston, and they had a hell of a time getting their raw milk. They got to drive a couple hours, and they do carpooling and all kinds of stuff to get the raw milk down there because it's not particularly legal in Texas to have a retail raw milk. So, if we were a celestial observer looking at this little petri dish called Earth, we'd think we were all committing suicide. The way we embrace antibiotics, sterile foods, preservatives, lack of biodiverse. These are all the elements that actually bring on this 245 people a day, plus some, dying every day. Not to even address the issue of all the other chronic diseases going on. I'm just talking about the tip of the iceberg here. So this is a very serious issue, and it's something that we can take personal responsibility to actually address or not address. So that's a neat thing. There's an answer here. And this answer is being carried by lots of people, and there's a big movement. There's a raw milk rising that's going on because people that start drinking raw milk start seeing great stuff happen to their kids. Great stuff happen to them, and it's the truth. I heard a beautiful story from you last night about your child and autism. And she's got hundreds of families now getting around her in terms of the nutritional advice that she's giving it to her families. So this is very, very powerful, and it's interesting. There's people in Hawaii that before we had the ban on interstate raw milk executed on us last year by the FDA, they were shipping cases of this stuff to Hawaii. This is a Hawaiian refrigerator right here with our products all through it, because you can't get raw milk in Hawaii, and there's virtually nobody with a cow over there. There may be one or two people, but there's just no raw milk in Hawaii. So these people were shipping in our milk as pet food to be able to consume it and be able to get some of the value of what we're talking about today. You know, this is a... It's harder to get raw milk than it is marijuana, I'll tell you that. Especially in Canada. This is kind of cute. It came out of Ohio, where the Amish have connected to Weston A. Price Foundation people and have created these little cow share programs where the people buy a part of the cow, and they do this whole fancy thing to try to get around the law, and half of them go to jail half the time. It's just crazy. Where in California, because people stood up for their rights, they've kept their freedoms intact because they've said, no way, no how, keep your hands off our raw milk. We've got it in 420 stores, and the state of California has been put on notice with a shot across the bow the last few years from the moms that won't put up with this crap, that our raw milk is sacred. But those people that sit and wait and relax and let the currents of change go past them and don't think that they're going to be part of the process, they get their rights taken away from them. It is critical. It is critical that you stand up and be counted. I have a very, very short story. It's very important to tell. Just 3 days ago, I was at the state of California in Sacramento testifying in a Senate hearing for Senate Bill 362, which is to modify the milk pool in California, which has got all the milk screwed up in terms of a Milk Balancing Act. It actually incentivizes farmers to make tons and tons of milk. And in doing so, actually hurts the farmers because they can't sell it and they dump it in the street. And they now are suffering the lowest milk prices ever, about $9.65 per 100 pounds. It's about 83 cents a gallon of milk for the farmer. It takes about $1.50 to break even on the farm. So it's desperate times for California on the conventional dairy system. I had spoken to a bunch of organic dairymen. I'd spoken to a bunch of conventional dairymen who wanted the milk pool changed. And these guys were passionate on the phone. They were passionate when I spoke with them. But when I invited them to get to the hearing, they didn't show up. When they got there, they had their tails between their legs. The opportunity was given to them on a silver platter, and yet they did not speak with passion or conviction or like they were being hurt. One of the dairymen that spoke, which is one of the neighbors' dairies there, it's a big vertically integrated dairy, was paying $1 million a month into the milk pool and not deriving a commensurate compensating benefit back. $1 million a month because they're vertically integrated. They have the dairy, they've got the creamery, they got their trucks, and so they don't really buy much milk from outside, so they have to contribute in without getting value out. It's a complex thing. Even the people at the CDFA didn't know how to explain it. But the bottom line was, this guy was so passionate and red hot to get out of the milk pool. When he got there, it was like totally tail between the legs. So whatever happened to being passionate, being a pioneer, being a leader, being a part of your future? That's really sad. It's really sad. It's happened across, I think, as patriots, we can kind of see it in our brothers that, where's the shoot back, man? And that's really important. We got a smart shoot back because there's SWAT teams over there to kill you, but right there. But you got to be careful how you shoot back. We got the internet. We got lots of friends out there that can help us. How we shoot back, and we shoot back even more effectively than with guns. Although I do like my guns. The American food system is in bad shape because of these problems we've talked about. Processed foods, antibiotic use, preservatives, and all these diseases on the left-hand side. And this is just the tip of the iceberg here. There is no incentive to create wellness in America. Why would any doctor want well people? There's no line outside the door to make us $100,000 a month. You need to have sick people to have people line up because there's a disincentive for wellness. I'm not suggesting all doctors that way because I know some excellent physicians that practice treating people to keep them well so they don't get sick. Smart doctors do that. But I tell you, there's a lot of doctors that just have been trained through their medical training to do surgeries or to give lap band therapy or to do whatever. And you know what? That's after the horse left the barn. You got to fix it first. And the billions being made by the FDA-approved pharmaceutical companies, and this is all dogma. I'm just beating the horse here. I'm talking to the choir when I say this to you, but it's really a paradigm that works all together to make a few people really rich and a lot of people really, really sick. And it's all accepted as okay. Remember, 245 people died today, and it's okay? It's okay. Didn't even make the news. Do you realize how many 245 people is? If the FAA was in charge, that's like a 747 crashing every day. They ground all the airplanes. That's how severe it is, but no big deal. It's okay. A whole food nutrition system is one where, guess what? The organic farmers. The farmers make the money. You know, those of you who study economics understand that the economy begins with mining, fishing, and farming. What kind of economy do we have if we have no farming? What's that?
All economy is local.
Thank you. All economies are local. They start with mining, fishing, and farming. And guess what? That was my basic 1A economics in college, right? Well, we don't have those things doing very well. Some are okay, but I mean, we're having a real hard time with the starting of the cash from the raw roots or the grassroots starting up through. And as a result, we see local churches, local communities, local everything is suffering because there's nothing starting and growing from that. We're importing everything and it's being obliterated. But those places that have raw milk, where you're getting $1,000 a cow per month, 15, 20 cows sustains a family really, really well. And there's a connection between the farmer and the consumer, and that money starts to flow from the bottom of the economy. These are brilliant ideas for starting our economy in a real way. But a strong immune system is the direct result because there's a fair trade here. The farmer gets good money for his milk. And guess what? The consumer gets whole food nutrition and a strong immunity and doesn't die from MRSA and have these issues that occur from immune depression. So it's a fair trade. And the consumers are willing to pay for it, no problem. We are getting $130 to $140 per hundredweight for our milk, when the conventional guys are getting $9. Where's the math? There's no correlation. It's not even the same food product. Because one is to wetten the cereal, and the other one's to fortify one's life. So, I mean, there's different purposes for why you eat these foods and why you consume them, and there's different values across the food chain. And all these diseases on the right here are substantially affected, either improved completely or eliminated, when you start drinking raw milk and eating a whole food diet. So this is a quantum change in paradigm, and it's not going to happen overnight, but it does happen from the raw roots up. It doesn't happen from the top down because there's too many moneyed interests that protect the establishment, but it does happen at the local level going up, and we see that happening right now. By the way, breast milk is raw milk. Yes, absolutely. I love breasts, guys. Aren't they great? There's a reason why. That was supposed to be funny. Hey, my wife is a labor and delivery nurse, and she should probably give the next little section here, but I'm gonna rob the story. Breastfeeding is not a one-way street. Breastfeeding is a two-way relationship. It's symbiosis with the mother. The newborn baby suckles on the mother's breast, and as the sucking process occurs, actually the mother is sensitized to the baby's bacteria in their mouth. And the mother becomes the antibody factory for the baby in the next milkings of the day or two later. Guess what? The antibodies created by the mother, who's an immune factory for the baby, the baby suckles in immune milk from the mom. It's milk plus antibodies and transfer factors that gives the baby what it needs that it doesn't have because it's brand new, fighting the world its own new battle. When a baby is born, the digestive tract, remember that's 80% of the immune system, is basically sterile. There's no bacteria there. The birth canal experience is its first inoculum to the outside world. The mother is critical in terms of inoculating its baby. 25% of the babies in this country are C-sections. I'm not going to render any judgment whether that's good or bad, but I'm saying, wow, we've just completely skipped by the immune system development of a newborn baby. Yes?
There's a statistic. There's more autistic children when they are born C-section than natural birth.
There you go. There are more autistic. You want to stand up and say that again? Okay. There are more autistic children coming from C-section process than natural childbirth. Now, if you look at autism, we really don't know what causes it, but we know that at some point there's a straw that breaks the camel's back at 18 to 36 months or 48 months of age, where all these factors, whatever they may be, genetic, nutritional, whatever, something happens, either a shot or this or that and the other thing, and maybe an illness, and what do you know? This kid presents with an autistic spectrum, either mild, severe, whatever. We do know also that look at their fecal samples. Look at what's going on in their gut. Look at their allergies. Look at what's going on in their intestines, and you'll find they have terrible dysbiosis. The bacterial colonies in their gut are completely wrong. There's an infectious process going on, and an inflammation process is horrendous. You start changing the diet, and you start getting back to probiotic bacteria, you get the inflammation down, you get the infection down, and these kids' brains start working again, and they start improving dramatically. In fact, that story, your name again was Andrea. Andrea has a great story, and mothers have clamored around her because of the story she has, which is true. The truth is obviously the best way to tell any story. So anyway, and the story gets worse with breastfeeding. I mean, you got the kid, a lot of mothers aren't breastfeeding. Then the kids get inoculations early, which insults a completely immature immune system that doesn't know what to do with this insult that comes through a muscle versus through the digestive tract. You look at newborn babies, you know, they get 6, 7 months old, they're crawling around. What do? Put everything in their mouth. What are they doing? They are sampling their ecosystems so they can build immunities to it. And what do they need to be able to do that effectively? Whole food nutrition, raw milk. Children that are raised on breast milk do really, really well. They have a car wreck when they go to pasteurized, sterilized junk. These kids are bacterial magnets. They're trying to find all the stuff that they can build immunity to for life. For every round of antibiotics a child gets prior to 1 year of age, they have a 250% increase of asthma for life. That's how destructive we are in terms of what we're trying to do, thinking that our body is this sterile zone and keep all the bacteria out of it. For every round of antibiotics that children receive prior to 1 year of age, you have a 250% increase of asthma for life. This is a Finnish study confirmed by a Canadian study. So we cannot continue to persist in trying to kill off things to make things better. We have to now start thinking about growing things to make things better. And that's a paradigm shift of concept. Some doctors get it. Dr. Donald Fields, chief of medicine at Valley Children's Hospital, pediatrician in Madera, Fresno County. He's got 90% of his kids on raw milk. He says, look, put them on raw milk, come back and see me in a few weeks because guess what? It's probably going to fix it. Yeah. Kids do really, really well on raw milk. There's a few things, obviously, that need to be fixed or what outside of that, but I'm talking about whole food nutrition. Kids just thrive on raw milk. Hey, it's been around for thousands of years. We're only talking about the last 75 years we've really screwed it up. And we just got a few people talking about it. But, it's a powerful paradigm shift, and it's hard for some people to digest. Here's another raw milk baby. I saw her before her mom and dad made love to make her. Her mom and dad came from Salinas. Her dad's a nurse. Her mom's I don't know what she does, but they said, hey, we're West Indian Price. This is back in like 2001, and they said we want to have the absolute most gorgeous kid in the world. We're raw milk, doing this, all these kinds of wonderful stuff. And they got pregnant. She came by with a big old belly. She's continuing to drink raw milk. Then the baby was born. The baby was nurse fed for a year and a half, 2 years, and went on a raw milk. Never been vaccinated. Virtually never had a cold. No ear infections. No asthma. No allergies. No eczema. Perfect health. I don't want to say perfect because I'm not sure if she's had any little thing go wrong, but I'm saying a model of health, perfect teeth. And that is what we're talking about, Dr. Price, back when, of people that really concern themselves about a whole food nutrition diets can have healthy children. And that is the foundation of sustainable medicine. You can't sustain the alternative. The differences between raw milk and pasteurized milk are quantum. The FDA will say, oh, there's no substantial composition difference between the two, because the composition is fat level, carbohydrate level, very basic things. They aren't talking about whole food nutrition, guys. Whole food talks about all the bacteria, all the enzymes, all the raw fats, everything that's right there in the architecture as it comes out of the cow. Yes?
In 1993, Princeton University just released the fraudulent data from Pasteur about pasteurization.
Pasteur's last words were, hey, it's the milieu. It's not the bugs. Something that Claude Bernard and Pasteur kind of had this conflict in the 1880s, 1870s, actually 1850s, 1870s, where they're talking about what makes people sick. And Pasteur's concepts were, it's the germ that makes people sick. Well, if I gave everybody here, which I won't today, but if I gave everybody here the same bug today, only a few of you would become sick. That's because only a few of you have an immune system that would allow that bug to take root. The rest of you have a background, have an internal ecosystem, have a preventative functioning immune system will protect you from it. So it's not the bug, guys. The bug may play a part, but it's a lower level part. It's the internal ecosystem. It's the environment that's so critical and foundational. And that goes for safety in raw milk. That goes for all kinds of things. It goes for a whole broad range of issues. But let me tell you a couple lies here real quick, and then we'll go on. Phosphatase. What is the test for pasteurization called? Anybody? It's called the negative phosphatase test. The third most prevalent enzyme in raw milk is phosphatase. Phosphatase is critical for the absorption of calcium in people, all of us. If you have osteoporosis, you don't make very much of that. It's inactivated. It's for some reason it's missing and doesn't work real well. And you don't have this enzyme, you have a very difficult time absorbing calcium. As part of the Senate hearings last year for Senate Bill SB 201 in California, there was a gal that came and testified. I can't remember her name now, but remember her name? No. Anyway, she showed her x-rays saying, I've been on pasteurized milk and doing all this Western protocol for forever, and my bone density kept on going down and down and down and down and down. With raw milk, after 8 months, she saw bone density increase that were dramatic. Now, osteoporosis, as a paramedic, I have a really keen sense of how that can kill you. We go for a person who slipped and fell, broke their hip. Well, that probably wasn't going to hurt them. But you know what? The recovery period did. They put them in a convalescent home for 6 months. They end up with an antibiotic-resistant infection because of the surgery. And then guess what? You have a decubitous ulcer and diaphragm pneumonia. You're dead in 6 months from a bone fracture. So osteoporosis is critical if you want to have lifelong health, to not have osteoporosis. That's why phosphatase matters. Phosphatase is God-given. It's right there. It's naturally formed in raw milk and eliminated intentionally as an indicator of effective pasteurization in pasteurized milk. Lipase, obviously, is a fat enzyme. Immunoglobulins, which are found, remember the antibody factory. The cow is an antibody factory also, and you also get these wonderful immunoglobulins, which actually help asthma. Lactase, well, raw milk doesn't have lactase, but it has the beneficial E. coli and it has the lactobacillus bacteria, which create lactase for you in the intestines. So the elements in your internal milieu, your internal ecosystem, your compost pile, actually create the correct enzymes you may be missing if you have the right biodiversity functioning in that compost pile of your gut. So there is no lactose intolerance associated with raw milk, where there is all over the place, especially people that have chemo, antibiotics, and then genetically predisposed to not making lactase. You got wide spectrums of this country that cannot drink pasteurized milk that are going to soy milk. And Kayla will talk about soy milk. She'll talk about that road wreck and how that's going on that's so thyroid disruptive, it's disaster. So pretty profound here what's happened to our country in terms of being derailed. Yes, sir. I would say there was a study done in Michigan by Dr. Ted Beals that showed about 90%, 87 to 90% of people that were diagnosed as lactose intolerant drank raw milk without any kind of side effect. Okay? Now that's pretty profound when you're just taking a population of just lactose intolerance people. Now remember, there's other sensitivities to milk besides lactose intolerance. There's a mucus response that happens from pasteurizing the broken back bacteria. There's also some casein issues. But you also, I'm one of those proponents that says, hey, listen, if you can't tolerate raw milk, you probably have some other stuff going on. Because if you take small Dixie cups, for instance, every 6 hours, you could actually build immunity to most of the stuff, and your body becomes desensitized to it. And it's so easily digested that actually most anybody can. It's just a matter of whether you're going to be patient enough to go from where you are to where you can be. It just takes, it's an immune type thing. Vitamins, without the E. coli and without the beneficial lactobacillus bacteria, bifidobacteria, you can't make vitamin B. Vitamin K. Vitamin K is actually a cofactor. It's made by the interaction of bacteria in your intestines. So when the FDA looks at this and they say, oh, we don't measure all those things. Well, we do as consumers. This is whole food nutrition. We're not brain dead idiots. We understand what functions in our body. We understand what works and what doesn't work. And we don't measure things the same way you guys do. Raw milk has within it, and breast milk, because it's raw, has within it a whole bunch of innate, God-given, engineered safety systems, which are enzyme-based, bacteria-based, protein-based, which actually inhibit the growth of bad bacteria by the proliferation and rapid growth of good bacteria, like lactobacillus and bifidus. So there are a tremendous number of safety issues when you talk about pasteurized milk. That's why when you go to a pasteurized milk creamery, it looks like they're doing surgery. They got masks and everything sterilized and quaternary pneumonias. Well, guess what? About a year and a half ago, 3 people died at Whittier Farms from perfectly pasteurized milk in Massachusetts because of Listeria monocytogenes. But you look at the CDC website, you will not find one incidence of Listeria found in raw milk. You'll find it in raw milk cheeses, but not in raw milk, going back 20 years. The reason is guess what? When you have lactobacillus bacteria creating organic acids, you can't have Pseudomonas and its next relative over, Listeria. So the more we approach sterility, the more we approach having pathogens being developed. And the more we try to sterilize things, the weaker and weaker our immune systems become. And actually the list of pathogens in our country gets longer and longer and longer as our immune system gets worse and worse and worse. Our pathogen list would shorten. And there's lots of studies to talk about this, about the fact that, until 1972, Campylobacter was not even considered a pathogen in the United States because everybody is immune to it. Traveler's diarrhea. Well, there's a reason why I was contacted by the Special Forces in 2002, right when we were going over to Afghanistan, because some guys down here in Special Forces said, I'm not worried about bullets, I'm worried about the diarrhea from the food we're going to have to eat. And they started drinking raw milk and raw milk colostrum, and their outcome was completely different because, remember, MREs, they're sterile, man. They are not good food. But when you go undercover, you don't eat an MRE because that makes you look like a target. These guys were going to the indigenous tribes and drinking goat milk and goat milk cheeses in northern Afghanistan. And they did not want to die from diarrhea. And guess what? 2 months before they went, they started guzzling raw milk and colostrum, and they did great up there. So the government knows it too. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's just basic biology that's being oppressed for greedy gain by the industries. There's only 2 raw milk dairies in California. There's 2,000 conventional dairies. Let me tell you, their political clout is huge. So my voice is, it's hard to speak up. You got so many voices against you. There's 13 dairy products we create. All of them are raw and living and alive, never been above 100 degrees in their lives. And found in most stores, not all stores in California, but 420 stores in California carry most of those. And not all of them all the time because they get sold out, which I apologize, but only 350 cows can only do so much. It takes 100 pounds of milk to make 4 pounds of pounds of butter. So that creates a lot of skim milk that we sell off to the organic guys that pasteurize. Sorry, but we do that. So we do our best, and that's the way it is. I wish we had more people helping us in this market, but like at the Senate hearings, where were they? They didn't. I think they've lost the connection to the consumer. We love our consumers, and they don't even know one of theirs because they're separated by a pasteurizer and a brand and commingled by 100 other dairies. And as a result, they're getting paid for it now, $9, 100 pounds of milk. So it's been often said that we're the only organic milk that still has the organic left in it. You look at what the definition of organic is, it's alive with enzymes and good bacteria and the soil and the earthworms and the light and the moisture, easily composted, easily digested. That's what Rodale meant when he was talking about organics. He wasn't talking about UHT, ultra dead, 90-day milk. He actually said that wasn't organic when you did that. And by the way, this last picture here is a picture of one of our farmers market stand in Fresno, which we created a community of people that come and buy their milk every weekend. In fact, this morning they were buying milk there. So, safety guarantees and promises. We never say you might not get sick from drinking raw milk, even though there's very few people that have reported any kind of illness whatsoever with raw milk. We don't guarantee safety. What we do guarantee you absolutely is that you will have dramatically improved immunity and probably never get sick because the next little bad bug that comes along from whatever cause won't make you sick either. And that comes from the whole food biodiversity. And the most dangerous thing you can have is a naked immune system, just waiting for the next bug to get you. In the United States, that's it. That's what America does, is wait for the next bug to get you. 245 people every day die from it, plus a whole lot more. So these are the conditions right here that actually create unsafe dairy products. This is your mega dairy, guys. So you got two raw milks. You got milk intended for people with connected consumers and farmers and standards and low bacteria counts and all kinds of stuff. And you got this over here with complete disconnection to people with a connection to the pasteurizer with all these weird things going on. They're totally not the way Mother Nature ever would have had a cow go do naturally herself. So you got to acknowledge in your mind two raw milks, one for people, one for pasteurization. And there's room at the table for both. I'm not suggesting we alienate either one. I think we've talked about that a little bit. I've got short time here, so we're going to click through. This is an advertisement on 99 Highway for Chateau Fertilizer. If you look at the soils in our country, they mirror what our gut looks like. If you look at the bottom of this, you'll see that on the left-hand side there, you see the diversity of growth and the weeds and everything, and it's alive. That's kind of an organic kind of soil. Over here on the right, that's what's supposed to be the goal. Literally the objective is to have sterile soil. If that remains the objective, we are in trouble. So be aware of your food source and how that's farmed. That's what it's all about, guys, right there. That's my son, Aaron, who I'm very proud of. He just graduated with his MBA from Fresno State. He runs the operations, allows me to be here this morning. And that is about as fresh raw milk as it gets, except for maybe you 24 years ago. But that's pretty close. Okay. Something's going on. We're getting a lot more for our milk, and we are selling out chronically, constantly, and getting a lot paid for it. And the conventional milk producers can't dump it in the streets. So there's something going on. This is literally the same tribe that Dr. Weston Price visited back in the 30s in the Maasai. You notice something there? This is last year. Coca-Cola, guys. So all things American, there's some real sudden tragic dangers going on. And it's pretty spooky. I think I've said this about 10 times over today, but really, literally the wisdom of the ages, which allowed primitive cultures to perpetuate and be healthy, are being washed from our minds because we've got this greed component and this regulatory component going on at the top of our country, which is changing what we believe to be true. Greatest hope for us is to get back connected to local and whole foods that are consumed universally. And when you have that, then you can afford a universal health care plan because you won't have so many sick people. This is the cornucopia of foods in contrast. On the left-hand side is what the government suggests we go do to become healthy, which is a crock of crap. Now, I wouldn't even give them that because crap's good. This is a crop of chemicals and synthetics, which are truly they're toxins, they're poisons, and our bodies don't know what to do with them. If you ever really listen to a pharmaceutical ad on the TV, you'll just about puke because it talks about the side effects, including death. So, if used properly, thank you. So, on the right-hand side, on the right-hand side, you see whole food nutrition. On the left-hand side, you see drugs. There's a picture of our dairy, our little creamery. We're building a new one next year. We hope to have people invite to our grand opening. People even fly in to get their milk, which is kind of fun. We have a little pass. And there's an airplane powered by raw milk. We have rallies all the time around this issue because people fight for their right to have whole food access. Let me tell you, next time you go to the Whole Food store, go look at the almond counter. Go look for almonds. It'll say raw almond. You've been lied to. It's been pasteurized, and it's okay because the USDA said you can call it raw after being pasteurized. I tell you what, they would freak out if I sold my milk as raw but it had been pasteurized. So there's a real lie going on in this country, and we have to seize it back. Another little raw milk baby, same story as before. There's our cows, and they didn't stand. That was actually the way they stood naturally. I just clicked a shot. Cute little picture of a calf, next generation going on there. My son and daughter, my daughter's going to graduate with a nutrition marketing degree next year, Fresno State, and my son. And there was one question that was asked to me by a USDA guy once. He goes, I have to ask one question to know if you're sustainable or not. What's your next generation doing? They're alive and on fire for this whole thing, so that's exciting to know they're not sustainable. Here's an aerial shot of our farm. More cows hanging out. They all have names, by the way. My wife named them all. More connection to consumers, which I dearly love and encourage and embrace. It puts the culture back in agriculture. It's a beautiful thing. And this is a kind of a raw milk shelf talker we have up in some of the stores, and they get torn up and thrown away by the conventional guys. You rarely see this. And we do hold it all in our hands. If we want to be free people, we must be healthy people. In fact, the free people will attend the funerals of the unhealthy. So it is literally our inheritance to take over our country by being healthy and thinking straight and supporting that part of the food chain which is truly sustainable. We will, by just natural selection, be in charge later. So let's eat whole foods, and we can have universal universal health care by universal consumption of whole natural foods, and nutrition matters. Thank you very, very much for your time and attention.